Life Management Science Labs would like to acknowledge that we live and produce this podcast on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people. We'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands of our listeners and our international colleagues. We'd like to pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Doing Well, the Wellbeing Science Insights podcast produced by LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. We're champions of life management science, providing structured insights informed by science and inspired by practice on key aspects of conscious living. Each week, we bring you scientific and practical insights on each element with the expert knowledge of professionals in the field. I'm your host, Lu Ngo, coming to your ears from Naarm, Melbourne, Australia. Let's learn together.
Welcome back to the show. I'm Marie and I'm filling in for Lu as she's currently under the weather, unfortunately. But today we're exploring acts of kindness and how they can benefit the well-being of not just others, but ourselves too. And to guide us through this discussion is Sze Jin, the founder of A Kind Place, which specialises in working with neurodiverse individuals, providing counselling and training for them. Hi, Sze Jin, how are you doing today?
Hi, Marie. I'm doing good. Thank you. How about you?
That's great to hear. I'm doing good too. Now, I'd really like to know, what is your approach when it comes to practicing kindness?
For me, my approach for practicing kindness, I think, is first being kind to myself. Because if I'm not kind to myself, I don't have the capacity to be kind to others. Then I try to be nice to other people and always remember that we're all humans and we're all doing our best. So just any little act is good.
That's a great way to think of it. And it's also a great preface to our topic for the day. But before we get started, we'd like to get to know you better. This is Have You Met Sze Jin? So I really like to know, what is your favorite book?
I don't have one favorite book, but like one of the books that I did enjoy reading is The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. I like that book because it's about this guy who was working in a high corporate lawyer role and then had all sorts of health issues. And I think the book reminds us that life is not just about that. And it's about learning to slow down, get in touch with our spiritual selves, and also teaches us to live a more simple, fulfilling, and happy life.
That's a lovely reason to like a book. And I love books that remind you of things about life and how to live your life and anything existential too. And what about movies?
I don't remember watching many movies recently, but there's a TV show that I'm watching.
Oh, what TV show?
So I'm watching this TV show called Chuck. It's action, but there's also some romance in it. So I like it because I think that it shows the parts of people where it's very real, they're wholesome. And there's always a good side to a person, no matter how tough a front they put.
Right. Like, people are complex and they might look like a certain way, but more often than not, we're all multifaceted, and shows that let that come through are very relatable and do remind you of people in real life like that too. So I can see why you like it. Are you listening to any podcasts at the moment? And if so, what is one that you listen to the most?
I occasionally listen to podcasts. So there's one that I listened to recently. I think it's called Think Fast, Talk Smart. And it's about how to communicate better. So I like podcasts that teaches us things and has very easy, actionable steps. And this podcast of like Think Fast, Talk Smart it teaches you how to sell yourself better, be a better communicator, public speaker. So I really like it.
That's really interesting. I do like podcasts that are educational as well. I tend to like veer towards the historical or like the like science stuff. But that sounds like a really good podcast to look up. Do you have a role model? And if so, who is this person?
I do have a role model, and I only met this role model about 5 years back. Yeah, and this person,
Tell us.
yeah. So this person is someone who I met while I was scuba diving, and he lives in the UK. So this guy, his name is LB, and I always tell everyone about his amazing life. So he's my role model because he lives on a boat and he really knows how to enjoy his life. Like he travels the world, he goes on adventures, he works remotely. But I think the one thing that really truly makes him so admirable is that he's always so positive, so kind, and anytime he talks about anyone or anything, it's always the good parts of them, like how something is so great and positive. So that's something that I really like about it.
That is an admirable trait, because I know that I don't have it in me, at least not right now. And I do envy people, or not really envy, but kind of like look up to them when they don't have a bad word to say about anything. It's just like, how do you do it? So is living on a boat something that you want to do in the future?
I don't know whether like living on a boat, but maybe being a digital nomad for a certain period of my life or something like that, I might think about it.
That seems like a very popular route at the moment, and reasonably so. So is there a course that you've taken that's really inspired you?
Yeah, there's this one course that I took probably about 3 years back. It's called Mindful Self-Compassion. So this course, what I tell others is it's magic. But magic for me, because it changed my life. It really helped me realize at that point, I didn't really like myself. But that's okay, because finding out that I didn't really like myself was something that helped me start making change. It taught me how to be kinder to myself, be less critical, let go of my ego, and be more compassionate to myself, but also to those around me, because when I feel good about myself, then I'm able to be a better friend, better daughter. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a great course. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I feel like we got to know you a bit better. So now we're moving on to the interview section of this recording. And the first question that we like to ask is, what does well-being mean to you?
So well-being, when I think of the word well-being, I separate it. Then I'm like, okay, so maybe wellness, and then being a person. So the wellness of a person. And when I think of the wellness of a person, I think of it as something that's holistic. So it's not just physical or mental health, but also spiritual health, like social, financial, and environmental. So a person being healthy and well through all parts of their life.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way of putting it. And do you think that well-being is something that anyone can achieve at any point in time, or do you think that it takes like a long time to get there?
I think different parts of well-being can be achieved at different points of time, because we as humans, we are finite and we only have so much time. So maybe we can take care of our social well-being first, if that's something that's more important to us. Then after we get that taken care of, we can then take care of maybe our emotional well-being. And sometimes it's a spillover effect.
That's really apt. And what are some misconceptions that people have about well-being?
I think people think that well-being means being happy all the time, or that maybe it's only about physical health. But as I mentioned earlier, well-being actually is something that's holistic, and it encompasses many parts of our life.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. So now, in line with the topic that we are here to discuss today, how would you define an act of kindness?
I think acts of kindness are something that's intentional. something that we choose. Usually it's something that's selfless and where we perform to benefit others, to positively contribute to their well-being, or even to ourselves, to contribute to our well-being.
Yeah.
And yeah, usually these acts are, I think they're more compassionate, they're empathetic, and they're genuinely done to improve like someone's life.
Absolutely. And what do you think about that? Like, there's this really famous saying, no good deed is selfless. What do you think about that?
That's a good question. I think that like it doesn't really matter because as long as someone does something good, they are benefiting another person. And it's not that they always choose to benefit another person to benefit themselves. It's that it naturally will make you feel good. So I think that it doesn't need to be selfish.
Yeah, that's a really good point because I don't know about other people, but a lot of times when I'm doing an act of kindness, I'm not doing it like the main reason I'm doing it isn't because I want to feel good about myself. My first reason for doing it, the primary reason, the first thing I'm thinking when I'm like, oh, I should do this thing for someone is like, this will make them feel good. And then like as a result, I feel good from it. And I know that that will happen inevitably. But then like, what's the point of being like, well, no good deed is selfless, or like that wasn't an act of kindness, that wasn't a selfless act. You know, it's just it naturally comes. So that's a really good point. So what are some examples of acts of kindness that can seem small but can make a huge impact on someone's life?
I think many different things, right? Even like if we go out, maybe we hold the door for someone. It could just make that person's day. Maybe that person was having a bad day and someone held the door for them and they felt, oh, wow, someone held the door for me. And then they want to be kinder to other people as well. Or it could be where we drop our friend a text and say, hey, how are you doing? I think that could be an act of kindness as well.
Yeah, those are really simple and probably really easy to do in your day life too. But how does practicing these acts of kindness affect our overall well-being?
So I think kindness is linked to happiness and contentment, as we shared earlier, right? So there was this study, I think about like a decade ago, and it was done on some undergraduate students. And they found that happy people are kinder as compared to people who are not happy. And they also found that one sense of happiness increased like the acts of kindness that they would do. So I think like kindness and happiness correlate. And also I think kindness promotes empathy and compassion and also helps us be more grateful.
Yeah, that's really interesting. What's the definition of happy there? Because I know some people who are like, well, like technically they're happy, but they do suffer from depression, if that makes sense. Like they're very happy-go-lucky individuals and they're always so kind and they always show empathy, but they do suffer from depression, anxiety. So like, what's the differentiation there?
I think when we think about like happiness or depression or any different emotions, you need to remember that emotions are a temporary state, right? So like happiness, a person can feel happy at one point of time, and it doesn't mean that they cannot feel depressed at another point of time. So I think like when a person does an act of kindness, probably in that moment, they feel happier as well. And that amount of time that they're feeling happy is the amount of time that they're not feeling depressed or anxious.
That makes a lot of sense. And when it comes to loneliness, how can practicing kindness affect whether we are feeling lonely? Like, does it help us feel less lonely if we practice kindness? And does it help other people feel less lonely when we practice kindness with them?
I think like I'll use an example maybe to share. So, for example, for us, when we do training with our clients who have neurodevelopmental disabilities, so a lot of times the clients, they are left there alone, right, in the workshop, and they're not being taken care of. However, with our trainers, just being kind and nice to them, like the clients' behaviors, their moods really change a lot. For example, there was one client that always resisted having people around her. She would be aggressive by scratching or trying to bite the person. However, like with a few times that our trainers just went there and really just be kind to her, just talk to her, show her that we care, she started to want to talk to the trainers. She started to stop scratching and not trying to bite the trainers anymore. And there was even a time where she stood up by herself and wanted to join in the activities.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I can relate to that now, thinking about it, that now that we're talking about it, I can remember like the handful of times that a stranger has like come up to me and been like shown some care or like asked about my day or just like chatted with me for a bit, just like even small talk. Like I know a lot of people think small talk is overrated, but sometimes like if I'm having a bad day, some small talk with some random stranger who just smiles at me, I immediately go like, oh, can I follow you home? Like, like,
Sometimes that's all you need.
yeah, like, oh, this is nice to have some pleasant human interaction. Now will you adopt me? um, so how can acts of kindness be integrated into workplace environments in order to enhance everyone's well-being?
I think acts of kindness can be integrated in different ways. So for employees, right? If employees are kind to each other, I think they will feel like more connected to each other. They will trust each other more. They'll want to help each other out more. And I think it boosts like their morale, their motivation, and make them feel like more motivated to go to work because the workplace is kind. My friends are kind. I want to go there. For employers, I think when employers do acts of kindness for the employees feel very appreciated. For example, like I had a boss when I was in the US. She was just the kindest person ever. If you go to work crying, she will be like, "Oh, what's wrong? Please come talk to you." Or like during festive season, she'll give us little gifts. Even though they're not anything expensive, but that really made us feel, wow, this boss truly cares for us and she wants the best for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like, especially if it's unnecessary or it's like unorthodox for an employer to do and they do it, it just kind of makes employees feel a bit more like, oh, wow, you appreciate me beyond the like solely workplace level. You do appreciate me as a person and you see me as a human being and not just an employee or like someone that you've hired, which is a nice feeling to have. So for like on a managerial level, for example, what can a manager do to kind of like encourage their employees to practice kindness with each other?
I think for managers, the first thing they need to do is model it. So if managers are able to model kindness, maybe, for example, even just saying like, how are you doing? How is your day? Like that is something that can get the other employees asking each other, how are you? How is the day? Other things would be like gratitude. So for example, practicing asking employees what another employee did well rather than what they did badly. So looking at the positives, I think that is also an act of kindness. Yeah. And there was one workplace that I was at, they had this kindness letters. So once a year, they will give out pieces of paper to all the employees, they're just kindness letters. So you can write a kindness letter to anyone in the workplace, and they will send it out for you.
Oh, that's adorable. That kind of reminds me of like in primary school, I think, or secondary school. I don't know if this is like a global thing, but where I went to secondary school, primary school, they had this like system, this angel system where you be someone's angel for like a month, and you drop like little notes of encouragement or letters of encouragement in their like little assigned pocket or something like that, and they'll be anonymous too, and then you just get all these little maybe small gifts, small snacks, notes, and stuff like that, which was really nice. So it sounds like kindness can be really contagious. What about it makes it so contagious?
I think it's that feel good feeling. So, for example, if imagine like you're running for a bus and the bus driver stops and waits for you. When you get onto the bus, you feel so grateful. You feel so lucky.
Immense gratitude.
Yeah, intense gratitude. That's right. Yeah. And with that feeling, I think you then want to be kinder to someone else.
That is so true, because if the bus driver doesn't stop for me, I feel like biting people afterwards.
Yeah.
I feel awful afterwards. Like I have to like wait another 20 minutes to get home. Not fun. But if the tram driver stops for me, yeah, I will be so happy and I'll like skip the whole way home or something like that. So it's crazy what kindness can do for you and other people. So how do you think we can teach other people to adopt kindness?
I think, like I shared earlier with the managers, it's about modeling kindness. So just like how we say kindness is contagious, right? So if we can practice being kind to other people will naturally start feeling that kindness, and then we are able to teach them more. Like they will naturally want to.
Yeah, kind of like lead by example. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Now we're moving on to the practice/habit section, and this is where we ask you some questions about the practical application of what you've just shared. So what is something that you do on a regular basis to remind yourself to practice acts of kindness?
Actually, for me, I think I do something a little bit more formal, a practice, because I noticed that if I'm feeling very burnt out or very tired, I don't really have the capacity to be kind sometimes. So one of the things...
Fair. That's so fair.
Yeah. So one of the things I do quite a bit is meditate. And in particular, there's one meditation that I think really helps with being kinder. So it's the loving kindness meditation. Yeah. And it's about wishing myself well, wishing other people well, and wishing people that you don't like well.
Oh,
yeah.
That's so wholesome. So can you take us through the steps of this meditation?
So I think anywhere that's quiet, you can do it in your living room, you can do it in a study, you can do it out in nature, if there's a quiet place in nature. For me, I prefer to practice it sitting down. Because if I lie down, I'll fall asleep.
Fair.
So once you get seated either on a chair or on the floor, then I will close my eyes. So you can close your eyes open, either is fine. And there's typically 3 steps. The first step is wishing someone that's close to you, someone you don't have a complicated relationship well. Then wishing yourself well. And then the third one, if possible, wishing a person that you might have a difficult relationship with or who might have hurt you.
The third one sounds like the hardest part to get through.
Or sometimes the third one is the hardest, but sometimes some people even struggle in the second one.
Oh, wow. Oh, that is so true. I can actually imagine that. So how do you know it's worked, and what are what advice do you have for getting through this meditation?
Sometimes you might feel resistance. For example, when I first started it, I felt quite a bit of resistance on the second and the third step. And there might be a part of you that starts wanting to wander away, or your mind starts to wander. But it's important to just try and keep sticking to the practice. So asking yourself to come back to it, and trying out with different words. Maybe if it's like, may you be happy, may you be healthy, or may you begin to be kind to yourself. Like sometimes adding those words might help. Yeah. And for me, how I knew that it worked was there was this person that really hurt me. And initially I had this distaste whenever I saw him. But after practicing it, I had neutral feelings. Like it took a while. But when I saw him another time, I felt neutral. I felt, oh, this is okay. Yeah, I don't feel bad.
It took a while, but you got there. Yeah, that's great. Okay, that sounds like something I've got to try out for myself. There's a long list. There's a lot of like the second part that I do have to get through. So based on the experience, do you have any other recommendations of practices that can be combined with this meditation practice?
Maybe in terms of like other mindfulness or mindfulness practice, you can take a walk outside, notice your breath. I believe that practicing mindfulness is very essential because it helps you be more present, and also it helps you take care of yourself. So when you can take care of yourself, that's when you're better able to be kind towards other people. And when you practice kindness to yourself, then you know how kindness truly feels.
Yeah, that's very, very true. And I hope we get there someday. Like I'm moderately kind of people. Like I don't want to say I'm the kindest person ever, because I'm not. I know I'm not. I can be annoying and mean. Okay. But I think I'm decently kind, but I hope to get to that point, like the role model that you mentioned at the start of the podcast, who's just kind to everyone and doesn't have a bad word to say, because that's such a great sound. It sounds like a great hate space to be in, to like not have any animosity towards anyone ever. And of course, like we're human, so we do have feelings of animosity sometimes, but be able to live your life that way just sounds incredible. So thank you so much for sharing that. Now we move on to the questions from the audience. So the first question we have is, do acts of kindness toward non-human living beings count, such as our pets or our favorite plants?
I think they definitely do. I think acts of kindness in general, any way that you want to do it, is an act of kindness.
Yeah. That makes me feel good, because I feel like I do treat my cat with a lot of kindness. He gets a lot of pets. He gets a lot of food and treats and stuff like that. So I'm feeling good about that.
No, that's nice.
It's also just because he looks so cute. It's hard not to. I'll get mad at him for like 1 second and he'll give me those like big eyes, those puppy eyes. And I'm just like, okay, I can't really scold you or anything. So that's how that's going. Anyway, the second question is, how can I distinguish between if I'm being kind or if I feel like I'm just being obliged to act kind?
I think that's a very good question. So typically when we do acts of kindness, I think maybe a way to think about it is, after you do the act, do you feel good? So if you feel good about it, then it's probably something that you want to do. And also maybe if you can notice your thought before the act of kindness. So if the thought goes something like, I should do this, like I should open the door because that's the right thing to do. If you use the word should, then that's probably more of an obligation. However, if the thought that comes is, oh, I want to open the door, or you just naturally open the door and you feel good about it, then that's more of a act of kindness, natural act of kindness rather than an obligation.
Yeah. And well, like, do you think it makes a difference whether if you feel like you're obliged versus if it's a genuine act of kindness? Like, if you realize that it's an act of obligation, what do you do then? Do you go like, well, I'm not going to do this anymore because I just feel obliged to? How would that work?
So I think I was in a situation like that before, right? So maybe, for example, when I want to spend time with my parents, I think that's a kind thing to spend time with them, right? But then initially I thought it was an obligation. So I'm like, oh, I need to spend time with them, or I should spend time with them. But I asked myself then, why do I keep doing it if it doesn't make me, like if it makes me feel tired or frustrated? But then I realized that, oh, I want to do it. So it's about changing the way that we see that situation. So for me, once I changed out how I thought about it, so instead of, I need to do this because it's an obligation as a doctor, my thoughts are, I want to spend time with them because they're my parents and I love them. Then every time I went to do it, I actually felt a lot better. So really just changing those words helped me a lot.
That sounds like something that's like kind of simple to do. So that's great to hear that you don't have to like do meditation again to change that. Because I feel like just even the simplest thing in like reframing your mindsets, it sounds like a lot, but I feel like even just like thinking, like rewording how you think will help with that. So that sounds great. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now we're moving on to the open mic section, and this is your chance to talk about anything that you're passionate about that doesn't have to be related to the topic. So the floor is yours. Take it away.
Thank you. I think what is one thing that I'm passionate about might be somewhat related, which is about our own well-being. Because one thing that I notice is whenever I ask people, how are you doing? Everyone's response typically is, okay, or so busy.
Yeah.
And I think that we need to take a step back. Maybe the whole society needs to chill and calm down, not work so hard, because life is hard already. And so I make life harder.
Oh yeah, 100%. I hear you. Like 4-day work week, please. I'm begging.
or like a Tim Ferriss book, I think, the 4-hour work week. Yeah. Recently I went to the US and I took a 3-week holiday. And even though I worked a little bit still during the holiday, like that really gave me a very, very good break. When I came back, I felt so refreshed. And I think I really want to talk about this because I want to encourage everybody to take a break. Whenever possible.
Yeah, live life a bit. And yes, it's important to work and like get to, your career and everything, but also remember that there's life out there, and to explore other things aside from work all the time. So that's a really great sentiment to leave our listeners on. Thank you so much, Sze Jin, for joining us today. If our listeners want to find out more about you and what you do, where can they go?
So there's a few places they can look for me. I'm on LinkedIn. If they want to look for me on LinkedIn, my name on LinkedIn is Sze Jin Ooi. And then if they want to check out our website, it's www.akindplace.co. wonderful. We also have Instagram, TikTok, and it's the same handle.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right. We'll link that in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us once again. And thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episodes.
You have been listening to Doing Well, the Wellbeing Science Insights podcast produced by the Wellbeing Science Labs, a division of LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. More episodes are available from 10 life management perspectives and can be found by searching LMSL on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, and other podcasting apps available on your devices. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, share, and subscribe to our channel so that other people can find it and we can continue to provide quality content. More of our work can be found on our website, we.lmsl.net, where you can join our movement. I'm Lungo. Thanks for tuning in.